Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, celebrity interviews, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now celebrating 17 years of broadcasting success, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, both for our radio audience here in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM and WPBQ 94.3 FM. We're glad that you all could be with us. Also, those joining in around the world, thanks to our friends at iHeartRadio and Amazon Music Podcasts. We're glad you all could be with us as well. We've talked about it quite a bit, but all of us have been impacted all over the world over the past year and a half because of the pandemic, and it's impacted everything, including our way of worship. That is also true for the work of Jehovah's Witnesses. That meant a change not only in the door-to-door ministry that they do, but also the public ministry and being able to gather together for meetings and even conventions. But the work has continued, and they have continued to be able to preach and teach and to be able to congregate together, including with a convention taking place this year, the Powerful by Faith Convention. How have they been able to do it? Well, here to talk to us about it, I'm excited to welcome Robert Hendriks to our program. He's the U.S. spokesman for Jehovah's Witnesses. We're going to talk to him not only about how love of neighbor continues to be able to propel the witnesses to do the work that they do, but also how they've been able to make adjustments to be able to reach their listeners and also their audience around the world as well. Robert, really appreciate the time today. Thanks a lot for being on with us.
Thank you, Cyrus. Yeah, it's good to be here. We're excited to get the message out about our Powerful by Faith convention, believe me.
Well, it really is powerful by faith. I was just sharing with you before you went on here, Robert. I just had the first part of the program, and we're going to be letting our audience know, of course, how they can be able to view it as well. You know, the time that we're living in is definitely unprecedented, and Jehovah's Witnesses have been able to make that pivot as so many have. One of the big things that has been noticeable, Robert, as you've been talking about a lot, I've noticed in other interviews, is the pause in the door-to-door ministry due to the pandemic. Talk to us about that decision and what it's been like for you to see the response to it.
Well, it's been historic. And, Cyrus, it was something that really affected us early on in a profound way, because I don't think any of us in our lifetime thought that we would actually be told by our organization to stop preaching door-to-door, to stop going to people's homes for Bible study, to stop our public witnessing with carts in major cities around the world. It was quite a shock to the system in the first few days and weeks. We have spent as an organization an enormous amount of effort establishing our rights to do what we do. 50 Supreme Court decisions that have established the legal precedent for what we do. And so to stop it was pretty profound and affected us in a profound way early on, emotionally and spiritually. But within just really days and weeks, we began to find our footing because, frankly, we had to. We're Jehovah's Witnesses. We witness, we testify, and that's part of our DNA. It's part of who we are. And so if you can't do it one way, you find other ways, and that's exactly what we've done.
That is so true, and you've talked about in other interviews such as this, Robert, and I really appreciate this time. You talked about the correlation between love of neighbor and how that, for one, is one of the reasons why Jehovah's Witnesses do continue to preach and teach, but also how that tied into the suspension of the public ministry. Talk to our audience about that and why this has been so important for Jehovah's Witnesses to make sure that they are heeding what Jesus said about showing love of neighbor and also keeping in mind safety.
The primary reason why we go to our neighbors' doors is the primary reason why we share the message is because we love them. And that's just a fact. We love our God, of course, number one, but we love our neighbor, and we feel we have something of great value to share with them. And many of our neighbors agree with that. Nobody disputes that the Bible is a powerful resource today and can help one live their life. It's just the greatest book that's ever been printed, the greatest book that's ever existed. And when you share Bible principles, you help each other. And so that's what we always set out to do. But loving neighbor doesn't just mean teaching them. It also means in the middle of the pandemic that you need to refrain from being with them. as difficult as that was, we recognized that it was inconsistent for us to say we knock on doors because we love our neighbor and then knock on their door in the middle of a pandemic. It would have been hypocritical. And so we suspended our public ministry, not just our door-to-door work, but even our free home Bible studies. We have hundreds of thousands of them that we conduct every week around the United States and millions around the world, and we had to stop them as well. And so as we thought about the decision, it really wasn't that difficult, even though it was emotional. It wasn't difficult because Bible principles had to really trump personal preferences. Our preference would have been to come. Our principle said you can't do that, and so it was an easy decision. In addition to that, though, we love life. We want to live. Our God believes that life is sacred. He's taught us about the sanctity of life, and so one person hurt because of this, one person who died because of us continuing our public meetings, our conventions, our ministry, would have been one person too many. So we didn't just want to mitigate the risk by perhaps going in PPE or taking our meetings and perhaps making our Kingdom Halls half full. We didn't want to just mitigate the risk. We wanted to eliminate the risk, and that's what we've done.
So true, and it's definitely been something that has been recognized, Robert. And as I was mentioning even in my intro and the lead up, that it does not mean that the work has stopped. And this has been the interesting thing because what has really happened has been a pivot toward being able to use online means, especially like Zoom. There's telephone witnessing now, letter writing that's taking place. How have Jehovah's Witnesses been able to use these online means to not only to stay informed, but also to stay spiritually fed themselves?
It's a good question because I think as February 2020 came to a conclusion, March 2020 started, we saw congregations begin to cancel their meetings around the branch territory, starting in Washington, D.C. or Washington State, in the Seattle area where there were obvious the outbreak happened, and then in New York City. And as the weeks went on in March, we began to have meetings where only 10 would attend and put on the meeting and do it through Skype or through FaceTime, or some just watched meetings that had been pre-recorded. We didn't miss our meetings, but we were a little wobbly in those first few weeks as the dominoes began to fall. But come March 20th, we knew we needed a virtual solution, and so the organization worked with the Zoom Corporation in order to provide a worldwide solution, a global solution for Jehovah's Witnesses. We didn't just want something that would, like a YouTube, that would stream out. We already had that. We had that tool, JW Stream. What we wanted was a tool where you could stream in and discuss and have folks participate in robust discussions, see their faces, be able to really, in a virtual way, but still, associate, fellowship, and share. Our meetings are 80% discussion-based, and so we have 2 primary times that we meet during the week, 4 meetings a week, and they needed to be interactive. And so the Zoom solution really helped us not only locally but worldwide, and has proven to be a powerful means to be able to conduct a robust spiritual discussion and fellowship in the middle of the pandemic.
Such a great point, and I was thinking about too in 2020, Robert. Of course, the most important meeting of the year is the memorial of Christ's death, and being able to see that being able to be still taking place. Definitely different, where the households were, being able to, have their own emblems, even having the instructions of being able to do that. I mean, still being able to have that. What was that like for you to see how even through the pandemic that even the memorial, was something that was still being recognized?
It was, I guess, at first unusual, unprecedented, and then gratifying and faith building. It kind of went in that. It went in that order. To cancel our meetings, to suspend public meetings right before our holiest day of the year, which is the memorial of Christ's death. That was pretty big, and I don't think any of us ever thought that we would be going right back to the first century tradition and celebrating with our families in our homes. I mean, when you really come down to it, it's one of the beautiful parts of what Jesus did. He instituted the most holy day, the most holy celebration of the year, with two emblems, with wine and unleavened bread. It was a family celebration. It was a communion celebration, and was very important. But you can do it with two emblems, and you can do it privately. And so we were able not only to do that on a family level by providing the emblems and having them with us. We all had the ability to partake of those emblems if we chose. But we also were connected with our brothers and sisters. And so more than 20 million people with a week's notice were able to connect via some virtual way, usually Zoom, and it was very gratifying to be able to see such an important day still be celebrated together, not simply in the confines of a home, but also shows the beauty of how simple that celebration is. And no matter what we're going through on that day, we can celebrate with our loved ones individually or collectively, and it was certainly proof of that.
Such a great point. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome Robert Hendriks to our program. Robert is the U.S. spokesman for Jehovah's Witnesses. We're talking to him not only about how Jehovah's Witnesses have continued to preach and teach, even through the pandemic, being able to use different means, but also to be able to stay spiritual fed themselves and to be able to continue with their meetings. And, of course, one of the big meetings every year, Robert, is the convention 2020. We were able to see how that was taking place virtually. Now in 2021, we have the Powerful by Faith convention that is going on now. Talk to us about that and what that's been like for you to continue the conventions and to be able to have these speakers. One of the comments I heard this past week was, if it had not been for the pandemic, would we have been able to have so many members of the governing body being a part of our programs here. But what has that been like for you to see how the Powerful by Faith, definitely an appropriate title for the times that we're in, has already been received?
Well, it has been received in a very profound way around the world. And I think there was a lot of excitement going into it, because when you look at the last 16 months, faith has really gotten us through. I mean, right. For many people, to watch a pandemic bring the world to its knees in just a matter of weeks in March of 2020, April 2020, to see Ivy League schools close down and go virtual, to see banking institutions worry about the future, the stock market fall precipitously, to be laid off from your job, millions were laid off, to see established retail establishments that have been around for a century fold. I mean, it really does rock your faith. And then to go through the community issues that we went through in 2020, and then the political issues that many people saw on television, it has rocked people's faith. There's no doubt about it. And you wonder, in this crisis of faith, how do we get our faith back? How do we rekindle our faith? And that's what this convention is all about. Powerful by faith, to be able to get through a pandemic and not only survive but thrive, to be able to get on the other side of the pandemic and not only feel like you muddled through, but you feel like a better person and a better organization as a result. That's all about faith. And it's all about the ability to see beyond the darkness of the moment and to be able to see the light that's beyond this pandemic, and to see the good things, the silver linings that have occurred during this pandemic, and to know that many of those are permanent. And it builds your faith in the Creator. It builds your faith in the principles found in God's Word. And it builds your faith, frankly, for me personally and for many Jehovah's Witnesses, in an organization that has sustained us spiritually, even through the most difficult time I know that I have ever faced, and many of our brothers and sisters have faced. So we're just blessed to have this wonderful convention that is once again unifying us globally.
Such a great point, Robert. And I think the thing that I appreciate it so much already is the global nature of it. Being able to hear from our brothers and sisters in different languages, singing songs that are sung literally around the world. Normally at Kingdom Halls, now of course in Zoom services, and then be able to see them being represented. I think throughout the convention as well. I think outside of course the convention that's going on right now, as people in our audience is now listening. I mean, we also are in storm season, and one of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses have been known for is coming to the aid of their brothers and sisters around the world when it comes to disaster, but also in preparedness as well. I noticed when I was prepping for this segment that work is already going on right now. How have Jehovah's Witnesses, Robert, been helping their brothers and sisters not only to prepare for what could be disasters that come, but also for emergencies around them?
You know, Cyrus, that our organization, Jehovah's Witnesses, that we respond very quickly, not just to the disaster when it hits, but before. And so we have already mobilized in the field those who are checking on all of our congregants personally to make sure that they've got what they need during this period of time, and then of course we have the humanitarian aid afterwards. We had 204 disasters in 2020 that we, as an organization, responded to, and they were from earthquakes to volcanoes to wildfires to hurricanes, tropical storms, and what we saw even during the pandemic was, number one, we were able to stay safe, because that is the key. You can't escape a disaster and be killed by a pandemic, so that wouldn't be good. And so that has been a challenge, but we've been able to meet that challenge. We've been able, during the pandemic, to deliver millions of boxes of food to the doorstep of our congregants and their family without even one person contracting COVID-19 as a result. And so as we look at the disasters that are coming, we have an annual part on our meetings globally that prepares people. Get your go bag ready. Our tendency is to think, well, it won't happen to me. But even many who live in disaster-prone areas can tend to feel that way. But really, while we're not really preparing for the inevitable, we can plan for what's possible. One Bible proverb says, the shrewd person sees the danger and conceals himself. And so when we are prepared and when we go through this with our congregations and our families, we ask them to prepare a go bag, check their go bag, make sure that they're ready, make sure that their contact information is up to date, that where they will be meeting outside of the disaster area is known to someone in the congregation. And they're checked on. That's how we check in, so that everybody knows. We account for every single congregant during a disaster, and we'll know literally within minutes or hours or minutes, that everyone is safe and what individuals need during relief, recovery, and ultimately rebuild. Really, when you think about it, disasters are inevitable, but they don't necessarily have to be deadly for our family. Being prepared really is the key. And it really lessens the anxiety that we feel during the disaster, because we feel like, okay, we've prepared for this and we can get through it. And then our organization, our brotherhood, will help each of us get through it as well. They'll kind of wrap their arms around us, a big, beautiful, warm blanket in an emotional and spiritual way, and even a physical way, to get us through.
Robert, it really brings this conversation full circle. We began it by talking about love of neighbor, and that has definitely even been a witness to non-witnesses as well, how Jehovah's Witnesses have come together and being able to, of course, be able to help their brothers and sisters in the faith, but also others as well. It definitely shows how the work continues. Again, everyone, Robert Hendriks has been our guest for this segment. He's a U.S. spokesman for Jehovah's Witnesses, talking with us not only about how Jehovah's Witnesses have been able to continue their preaching and teaching work through the pandemic, but also being able to continue to be spiritually fed and to encourage others through the convention. Again, the convention that's going on right now is a powerful by faith convention. Robert, for our audience out there, how can they be able to find out more information and even to be able to watch?
Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. We've provided so many avenues. The easiest probably for many is just to go to jw.org right now, and right on the homepage you'll see a link to the virtual convention. Also, if you go to About Us, you can find more information on our convention. So that's jw.org, the most translated website by far on Earth, well over 1,000 languages. But also you can download for free in the Android or in the iOS application store. You can download JW Library. You can see it right on your phone and download it within the app, which is free. All of this is free. You can download it on your iPad in JW Library. You can stream it from JW Broadcasting on Roku TV, Apple TV. So there's many free ways to get it. The key is that we do it, and there's no paywall. You don't have to put your name in to actually get access to it. It's a free gift to the world, and hopefully many millions, no doubt many tens of millions, will take us up on that.
Definitely will do that. Robert, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking out the time to be on with us today. And you have an open invitation. You're welcome back here anytime.
We would love to come back, and thanks for letting us tell everyone about this wonderful opportunity for the Powerful by Faith Convention.
Hey, the pleasure is definitely all mine. Glad to do it. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Conversations Live. Let's make it a great one. Take care.